And this moment is a special moment, because at this moment there is the potential that exists within our students to spread this change and to bring about a happiness revolution. A peaceful revolution that will increase levels of well-being around the world. A revolution that will generate not just more well-being, not just more happiness, but also more health and more goodness, more generosity, more kindness. This is about making the world a better place. This is about making a meaningful difference. And when I think about it, I know that this is the moment. Right now, right here, together.
It is so wonderful to have you here, to see some of you, hopefully to hear from you in a few minutes, and from all over the world. Mexico, Australia, Boston, Ukraine, Brazil, Vietnam, China, New Zealand, Mexico, amazing. So with the happiness studies, have students from over 85 countries, and getting together regularly in person, through webinars, all towards one objective: increasing levels of happiness for ourselves and for others. You know, one of the biggest challenges in the field of happiness studies is what psychologists call the hedonic treadmill. The hedonic treadmill. What that very simply means is that very often we experience levels of happiness as a result of success, as a result of some accomplishment, as a result of some external or internal change. And we experience a high, but that high doesn't last. Like a treadmill, like the rat racer, we get the high and then we very quickly go back down to where we were before. And there's research showing that this applies to lottery winners, you know, who are suddenly wealthier than they'd ever dreamed of. They have all the money in the world and they're extremely happy, but not for long. It applies to, there's research on university professors whose lifelong dream was to become a tenured professor, and they are extremely happy. It doesn't last. A month or two later, they're back where they were before. It even applies to relationships. You know, I found the love of my life. We're going to live happily ever after, or not. The high doesn't last. It applies to finding your dream job. So often we see this phenomenon, the hedonic treadmill. Well, I want to share with you something personal that relates to that, because the hedonic treadmill is a phenomenon that's real, pervasive, but it doesn't always happen. There are exceptions. There are sometimes experiences that defy the hedonic treadmill. And what happiness studies as a field is about is identifying those experiences where it's more than a high. You know, you go out shopping, you experience a shopper's high, it doesn't last. You accomplish your dream, usually doesn't last, but sometimes it does. And when does it do that? What conditions can we put in place so that when we experience a surge in our happiness levels, it actually lasts beyond the week or the month or the hour? And that happens when we're doing something that's meaningful, something that is making a difference. And that is the experience that many of us, and I say us because I'm part of this, that many of us experience going through the master's degree in happiness studies. Why? Because it has many of the elements of a full and fulfilling life. And I will describe it momentarily, but just the big picture. it's meaningful for many of us because we are making a difference week in and week out in our knowledge, in our understanding, and in our applying these ideas in the world. And we're seeing it's making a difference in our families. It's making a difference in our work, wherever we work, whether we work as teachers, whether we work as coaches, as therapists, as managers. It's making a difference in our families as well as in our professional lives. For 20 years, my dream has been to create a master's degree in happiness studies. Last October, through the Happiness Studies Academy and Centenary University, we created this program. We have our first cohort going through it right now. Our second cohort, as you know, starts on the 27th of August. Every week we meet through live webinar. We read together, we talk about ideas together, and we apply together. And yes, there was the experience of the high at the beginning for myself and my fellow journeyers, those of us on this journey together. We're still experiencing, for much of the time, the deep happiness that comes from the realization, the making real of a dream. So what I want to do today is share with you a little bit about this dream that's a reality, about the master's degree in happiness studies. And then I'll do that for about 10-15 minutes, and then we'll open it up for your questions, because I'd love to hear what you have to say. With us on the call, we have Dawn Homer, who is from Centenary University. She is, if you apply, you will meet her. She's extraordinary, as every single one of our students who applied can attest, and she'll answer questions about technicalities if you have any. I'm more than happy to answer questions about content, about what we actually do as part of this program. But before I answer, or we open it up for questions, I'll provide an outline. The person who is also here is one of the co-founders of the Happiness Studies Academy, and of the Masters in Happiness Studies, and that is President Bruce Murphy, who together with us created this first of its kind program. So welcome Bruce, welcome Dawn, and welcome all. Let me introduce the program. So technically, what does this program actually look like? It's a 20-month-long program. You start in August. You graduate the following May. It is 30 credits, which is pretty typical for a master's degree program. It can vary from 28 to 36 or more. We are a 30 credits program. More than 1,000 hours of study, which includes, as I mentioned, a weekly live webinar where we meet and we discuss the content of the week. Where there's time, obviously, for questions, for sharings, small group work, group for the cohort as a whole, and you should be prepared to invest about 10 hours a week, at least, on the program. If you do not have 10 hours, you want to invest less, we have our certificate program where it's 2 to 3 hours. But for the happiness studies, it's at least 10 hours a week investment. And here is the thing about the program. It's 100% online. And I want to say a few words about this because when we created this program, Centenary and the Happiness Studies Academy, we were debating about the nature of the program. Should it be 100% online? Should it be on campus? We have a beautiful campus in New Jersey. Should we, bring all students there? Should we have a hybrid model? So maybe a month a year or a few weeks during the year, because there are many programs today, more and more programs, in fact, that are hybrid. And we decided eventually to go with 100% online. Why? For a simple reason. We wanted it to be accessible to as many people as possible. So there are many people who have constraints, who cannot fly in. We have students from Vietnam and China and Australia, and we have students from Mexico and Brazil and Canada. And for some, traveling, coming in regularly to New York or New Jersey would have been a challenge. So we would have excluded many of our students. As I mentioned, the Happiness Studies Academy, we have students from more than 85 countries. So we decided to do it 100% online. And yet we are, of course, aware of the advantages of face-to-face interactions, of playing in the same sandbox as opposed to being on Zoom as we are now. So what did we do? What we did, we created retreats, physical retreats in different places around the world. These retreats can be 3 hours long, like the ones we're going to have in Vancouver next week, or like the one we had in Evian, France, a few months ago, or in Madrid, or that we have 3-day-long retreats, like the one we had in Lake Como in March, like the one we're having in Shanghai in September, like the one we're having in Colombia in November, or the one we had in Miami or Mexico, or the ones we'll have in Kenya or around the world. Now, the thing about these retreats, whether they're 3 days or 3 hours, and they happen a few times during the year, they're optional, meaning you don't need to attend any of them if you are to graduate, whether it's from the certificate program or the master's degree program. In other words, it's 100% online. These retreats, though, are open to you from the minute you enroll. So when you're a student, you're welcome to all of these retreats, whether it's, if you live in France and you want to come to the 3-hour one.
They don't have the video very loud. I don't know why.
If you want to come to the 3-day retreats, Lake Como, or the future ones in Colombia, Shanghai, you're welcome to these. And what we do during those retreats is, first of all, we have fun. So we dance and we chat, and we have, of course, academic content in the form of live lectures, and we have workshops, and we do things that you can only do when you are in person in the same room together. We have excursions where we visit beautiful places together. We have yoga classes for those interested, and you learn and you have fun, and you gain the benefits of an in-person interaction. And again, these are optional. So you want to graduate just online, that's fine. You never have to see people in the same room. But if you want to see people and interact with them, then you have a few opportunities during each year, and usually in a place which is relatively close to where you are, because we have them all over the world. So that's about the online / optional hybrid nature of the program. Now, here's something very important. The program through Centenary and the Happiness Studies Academy is accredited by the highest of authorities, which is Middle States. Now, Middle States is exactly the same accrediting body that accredits Princeton University and many other, Rutgers and many other top universities in the US. And that was very important. That's why it also took us a long time to create this master's degree, because it's easier to do it with lower levels of accreditation. But this is where we didn't obviously compromise. Why? Because we wanted this degree to be approved, accredited, acknowledged throughout the world, whether you are from China or New Zealand or, of course, the US or Canada or Mexico. So it's approved by the highest authority. A few more specifics about the program before we go into questions. So here are the courses that we go throughout the 20 months. First of all, there is the foundations of happiness studies. You're introduced to, everything from the learning management system to, what is happiness? How do we define it? Very, very general. The second course is also a general course, survey course, which is an introduction to happiness studies. And this is about delving deeper into the model of happiness, which we call the SPIRE model. SPIRE is an acronym which stands for spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional. So spiritual is about meaning and purpose. It's about being present, being mindful. That's spiritual well-being. Physical well-being is about physical exercise. It's about recovery. It's about nutrition. That's the P of SPIRE. The I of SPIRE is about intellectual well-being, which is about deep learning, which is about curiosity. For example, that one of the studies that we talk about is that curious people are not just happier, they're not just more successful. Being a lifelong learner does contribute to success. They also live longer. So while curiosity may kill the cat, it makes humans live longer. So that's intellectual well-being that we talk about. The R of SPIRE, relational well-being. That's about the importance of face-to-face interactions. It's about the importance of friendships, good relationships at work, at home. It's about kindness and generosity. Number one predictor of happiness, quality time we spend with people we care about and who care about us. And finally, emotional well-being, which is about learning to deal with painful emotions, because no one is exempt from sadness and anger or envy, anxiety, fear. These are all natural human emotions. Even if you get a master's degree in happiness studies, I guarantee you'll continue experiencing these painful emotions at times. Less so, you'll be able to deal with them better, but you'll still experience them at times. Emotional well-being is also about cultivating pleasurable emotions, such as joy and love and excitement and so on. Spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional well-being. This is the structure that we introduce you to as a journeyer in the field of happiness studies. Then we talk about leaders on happiness. This is a very important, major part of our program. It's about helping you become a leader in the domain that you're interested in becoming a leader. And some people are interested in being better leaders at home, as parents, as coaches, as therapists, as managers in organizations, as teachers, whether it's in the classroom or in the university, or as presenters and facilitators to the general public. So we are about leaders. Why? Because we want to spread happiness. First of all, increase it in ourselves, and then by extension, increase it in others. We know that increasing levels of happiness doesn't just lead to our physical well-being and psychological well-being. It also leads to higher levels of productivity, creativity, improving our leadership capacities, abilities. Happiness pays. It's a good investment for a business, for a school, for a family, for a community. So a lot of our work is on leadership, how you can become a better leader, lead yourself and lead others more effectively. Then we have a course on being a facilitator. This is all about interventions. You see, the master's degree, of course, has a theoretical component. Of course, we talk about research, a lot of research, but I wouldn't be teaching it. And I'm sure most of the students wouldn't be taking it if it couldn't actually make a real difference in our lives, in the lives of others. So this course is all about tools and techniques. Now, the first few courses have tools and techniques, of course. It's always about theory and application, theory and application. But this course specifically takes and distills the essence of evidence-based tools and techniques. What can we do to increase levels of happiness? So that's facilitating happiness. Then we talk about philosophy. You see, one of the differences between happiness studies as a field and positive psychology is that happiness studies goes beyond psychology. You see, thousands of years ago, great philosophers like Aristotle and Plato, like Lao Tzu and Confucius, introduced, as far as we know, maybe there was something before, but as far as we know, introduced the world to concepts such as happiness, such as well-being, the ability, giving us tools and techniques to deal with hardships and difficulties and emotional challenges. And we study them because there's a great deal that we can learn from them. Also, modern philosophers like Helen Keller, who helps us define happiness and helps us appreciate our life so much more. So there's a great deal we can learn from philosophers. And we learn from them, whether it's from Tara Wright Trent about the concept of Ubuntu, the African concept of I am because you are, the interconnectedness of all things, or whether it's Euripides who talks about the importance of learning to the experience of pleasure, intellectual well-being. So we learn about philosophers and happiness. Then we have Aspire Retreat. This is a course that I love, and with the first cohort, we're just going to start this retreat this August. Now, what is that Aspire Retreat? First of all, this is not in person. Remember, the degree is 100% online. But what we do in that retreat is we go through, as a group, we go through an experiential semester. And as I said earlier, during the Foundations of Happiness Studies or leadership or facilitating happiness, we're applying stuff. But here, we're applying all that we learned to ourselves. So in our homes, each one individually creates a small retreat space, and it could be the corner of your, in your bedroom, or it could be a room dedicated to it. But we create a small space where every day we go through meditation. And again, you get guidance for all this through the 5 Spire elements. Meditation, whether it's physical exercise, whether it's intellectual development, whether it's cultivating relationship and kindness, whether it's introducing more emotions, stretching ourselves emotionally through that retreat. And we make it very personal. Now, why do we do it? First of all, because that's one of the goals of the program, increasing personal happiness. But second, Carl Rogers, the famed North American psychologist, once said, "What is most personal is most general. What is most personal is most general." And Carl Rogers was absolutely right, because what he demonstrated, what he showed, was that when we learn things on ourselves, when we experience ourselves, we are in a much better position to then teach others. So during the Spire Retreat, we go through an intensive intervention, personal intervention, where we grow. And by extension, we are in a much better position to help others grow. Again, whether we're doing it as parents, whether we're doing it as coaches, whether we're doing it as managers or teachers. So this is the Spire Retreat, a whole semester dedicated to personal growth through evidence-based interventions, all scientific, all relies on the things that we learned in earlier courses. And then, of course, we go through action and reflection so that we can grow. Then we have a course on literature and film, because there is a lot that we can learn, just as we can learn a lot from philosophers. There's a lot that we can learn from movies. There's a lot that we can learn from poetry. There's a lot that we can learn from books, from literature, from the great writers, whether it's Neruda, whether it's from Achebe, whether it's from Shakespeare. And finally, the last course is whole being, whole person, well-being coaching, where you coach other students as well as people of your choice, and you're being coached by your fellow journeyers, applying once again all of the material, learning the science behind coaching, because today coaching has become a science. So you learn about research that applies specifically to coaching, and you apply research from happiness studies to helping others and yourself grow. So this is in a nutshell. I'm really looking forward to hearing your questions. And again, your questions can be about the technicalities in the program. And we have, and I'll introduce Dawn in a second, or about the actual content, or about any topic that's on your mind. One of the things that we teach in the program is that everything is interconnected. So any question that you have, I'm sure, is related, is connected to what we do. Now, the way to ask your questions is to simply raise your hand. You go down to the in your Zoom and you click on raise hand. Your hand will go up. I will call on you. Or you can ask questions. This is more difficult. You can ask questions in the chat, and I will scroll through it, but easier if you put your hand up. Would love to see you and hear your voice. But before we open it up for questions, Dawn,
I'm here.
hi.
Hi, Tal. I'm on my screen. I'm right next to you. Oh, here I am. Hello, everybody. Welcome. So glad you can make it. And like Tal mentioned, you can type away in the chat box. I'll be happy to answer your questions as well. So let's start with the first one. Would you explain more about coaching part of the program, Tal?
Yes. So, as I mentioned earlier, what our goal is to help you not just become happy yourself, but to also help others do the same. Now, in order to do that, you coach, whether you are a certified coach and you actually have coachees, who pay you, on an hourly basis, or you're a parent or you're a manager. So one of the studies actually that we're reading it's by Hermione Ibarra, who's a professor today at London Business School. She was at Harvard when I was there as well. And she talks about how the best leaders are also coaches. Why? For a simple reason. They help others grow. And that's how you become the best leader. So a significant part of our program, as you saw, we have a whole course of it. We talk about it throughout the program, is about coaching. Now, if you become a coach as a result of the program or not, that's, of course, that's up to you. But you do learn coaching skills, and you will become a better coach. And through that, you will become a better manager. You will become a better parent. So we teach those skills. What you use them for, that's of course, up to you. And again, we talk about the science of coaching, and we talk about the, and we apply the science of coaching in our work. Dawn, so how about we take a question? And again, if it is a question about the application process.
I'm typing that now about the application process.
Great.
They're asking if the program can be done part-time. The tough question.
Yeah,
let you
it is
answer.
it is a tough question. And look, we have close to 100 students in our first cohort. Most of them, how many? 90% or more are working. They didn't take time off for that program. There are, a few, but just a handful who are doing this full time. The overwhelming majority are working. Now, is it challenging? Yeah, as I mentioned, you have to put aside 10 plus hours a week to do that, because you'll have reading, and as interesting as it is, you'll have to do it. You'll have papers, and as meaningful as these papers are, because the work that we do, as I mentioned, is always about applying it. So, you have a paper where you prepare a lecture, and you actually deliver this lecture to your fellow journeyers, to other students, and you get feedback on it and you improve it. But then you have a lecture that we encourage you to take and pay forward, serve forward. You create a workshop, but it takes work to create a workshop. 10 plus hours a week. If you think you can manage it, then, and again, more than 90% of our students do it, and they find it meaningful, at times challenging. They find it meaningful and enjoyable and important. So the simple answer is yes. Most people do it part-time. At the same time, you need to make sure that you have that part of the time to invest. Dawn, do you want to take another question from the chat, and then we'll take a hand, because there are a couple of hands.
No, they're asking if you are the only instructor, or are there others?
Good question. So, yes, there are others. We have every 25 students at most have their own professor. And then you change professors for, different, for the semesters. At the same time, I'm involved in every one of the courses, at least for the first few cohorts. It was very important for me to be involved in everything. So every single course, every Thursday when we get together, I'm there. I'm running the live show. The other professors are there as well, and you meet with them throughout the 20 months too. But if your question is, do I teach all the courses? Yes, every single course. Do I teach it alone? No. We have, for this cohort, again, we have close to 100 students. We're 5 faculty members who teach it. And we're all very involved, very intimately involved with the content, with the live webinars, with the papers, of course, with the workshops.
Right.
Okay.
You want more questions? Okay. Are other professors actual professors, or just someone who has a master's degree?
That's a trick question, because you can become a professor. You don't need to be a professor to, you don't need to have a doctorate to become a professor. The answer is they have at least a master's degree. In your cohort, well, depends how many people we have, but we have professors. Right now, we have one of them is with a master's degree. The other is a doctor of actually positive psychology. So we have both, and by the way, you can choose which professor, in addition. Again, I'll be your professor in every course, but you'll have another professor as well, and you can choose who that other professor is. Correct.
You have 2 hands up, so I'm going to let you
let's do
questions.
it. So Zoya, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Very nice to meet you. I'm in Canada, and I have actually a couple of questions. First of all, you mentioned that it's a 20 months program. Actually, you mentioned that you finish next year by June, so that becomes a 10 months. Oh, the year after. So it is a 20 months. Okay.
Yes.
Second question I have is the hours, those 10 hours a week. What is the time zone that
Good.
they're taught? Because I still work full time.
Good. I'm glad you asked this question because I didn't mention it. There's only one live meeting during the week. It's for your cohort, it will be on a Thursday. For you, Canada, it will be in the morning.
I'm on New York time, Eastern
New York
Standard.
time, yeah. So it will be in the morning in Canada. Now, it is live. Most students join, but not all, because there are students who are working during the day and they cannot. And there are students for whom it's very late at night again. And we try to fit as many hours as possible around, but it's not possible, given that we have students from all over. And for those for whom it's the middle of the night, they sometimes attend, but sometimes they don't. They're all recorded. So you don't have to physically be there. You have to watch it, but you can watch it, the next day when the recording goes online. So it's your hours.
Okay.
Whenever, we do recommend that you find consistent hours so that you put aside, let's say, every, Monday from 5 p.m. to, 8 p.m., I'm just going to do this. Because, we have seen in other programs, online programs, have seen that is when, you're most successful and easier to do it. But what hours? Really up to you. That's the advantage of it. Yeah.
If I may ask more of a personal question that applies to me, I am close to retirement from my medical profession, and I practice age prevention medicine, and and longevity, life longevity is my passion, and I think happiness goes hand in hand, because if you live longer but you're not happy, that's not a quality of life.
And you will live longer if you're happy.
Exactly, right, yeah, and better. So my question is, as I prepare for my retirement from my first career, and I would like to become more of a coach or a teacher, a mentor in happiness science later on as my maybe part-time job or a full-time job, I'm not sure how much I will like it. How will it advance me? In other words, what kind of employment am I looking at, or who would be interested in hire a person with this master's degree in happiness?
Yeah, great question. And there are a few questions in your question. So the first one is the relevance for longevity and there's a lot of work, as you know.
Age prevention.
Age prevention, or what people call, the anti-aging, what I'd rather call pro-aging. And there's a lot of work on it, and we talk about it, whether it's the work of Rebecca Levy from Yale, or the work of Mark Rosenblum, and again, there are many others who are doing fantastic work. David Sinclair, of course, from Harvard, who are doing work on it. So we talk about this, and if you think about it, every one of the SPIRE elements is relevant for this realm, for this domain, because we know how meaning is important for longevity. We know how important nutrition is and exercise. So that's the physical well-being. We know how important, I just mentioned earlier, curiosity is. We know how important relationships, number one predictor of physical health, relationships. That's the Harvard study. We know how important dealing with painful emotions, cultivating pleasurable emotions is for health, for happiness. So of course it's important for the field. Now, your question is, and then what do I do with this master's degree? How is it relevant for my career? And the answer is, I wish I could say, oh, it's easy and everyone will hire you because you have a master's degree in happiness studies. We have some education to do, meaning we have to educate the market, but the market is becoming educated. I mean, I even sense it, so I have a 30-year career in this area. things are really changing today. When people would ask me, so when's the field of happiness, or initially I was in positive psychology, going to become more popular, more acceptable, more sought after by employees? And my response was always this. This is how I answered this 10 years ago. I would say, look, the nature of change is that it's slow, and then very fast. In other words, it's exponential. In other words, there is at some point a tipping point, in the words of Malcolm Gladwell, your fellow Canadian. And I said, and we're still here, and we haven't gotten to the tipping point. That's what I said 10 years ago. Today, we're at the tipping point or even beyond. And part of it is because of COVID. Part of it is just because that's how an exponential function works. Eventually, it flips. Eventually, it tips. So there's a lot more openness, and I see it in organizations who are hiring, whether explicitly chief happiness officers or implicitly HR managers, and they ask them to focus on the well-being of employees. Or CFOs, chief financial officers, where they're emphasizing you need to also take better care of the well-being of the employees. Why? Because we have the great resignation now. So many employees are leaving. And we need someone who takes care of the well-being of employees so that they're more likely to stay. And we know that retention goes up significantly when well-being goes up slightly. There's more and more demand for lecturers. We see it among our students and our graduates, whether it's from the certificate programs or students. We don't have graduates yet. Students in the master's program. There's more demand for them as coaches, for them as lecturers. One of the things that we emphasize as part of the happiness studies, and we're literally talking about this day, and just yesterday, I had a conversation with my co-founder, Yuval Kutz, about creating more workplaces and jobs for our students and graduates, whether it's as coaches, as lecturers, as in management positions. In the medical profession, we have numerous students who are medical doctors who are bringing it to their hospital. So it's becoming more and more common, and it's becoming more and more sought after. Does it have the same cachet or demand that an MBA does? No, or not yet. But again, I think we're already beyond that tipping point. It's happening right now as we speak. This demand is soaring, and we're seeing it. We're experiencing, our students and graduates are experiencing it.
Thank you very much for answering.
Thank you. And one last thing, the relevance of it is for any profession. So we have school teachers who are graduates of our certificate program, who are now students in our master's program, who are applying it in the classroom, whether it's in kindergarten or in high school. We have professors who are applying it in their classroom and who are teaching. We have a leadership professor, we have a psychology professor, we have a history professor who's applying it in their classroom in a university. So it applies. Obviously, coaches and therapists are applying it, and parents are applying it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Toda rabba.
Thank you. Toda.
Thank you. You just answered the question. Everyone was asking about the professors. Are they only in this field of study? But you just answered that question. And one other question, and I know you got about 3 hands up. Is there a thesis for this program?
Good question. Again, glad you asked. Very relevant to the content. So there is no one thesis at the end of the program. And we debated, we thought about it, whether do we have a whole course which is just a master's thesis, and instead what we decided to do is to have, instead of a macro thesis, micro theses. So at the end of not every course, but I think it's 4 of our courses, we have a final project. Again, you have writing projects throughout the semester, shorter ones, but we have final projects. And these final projects are what we call, and this is not my phrase, it was coined, I believe, by Megan McDonough, who calls it the Forever Project, not a final project, but a forever project. Why do we call them forever projects? Because our goal is for you to put together this project and then to use it for the rest of your life, forever, in other words. Most projects in university, and again, you know, I've written those projects, and many of you have. You write them, you put a lot of time into them, you get your grade for them, and then it's over. You know, maybe they're still on your computer. If you graduated more recently, some of them are gone if you graduated many, many years ago, like me. And you never do anything with them. Now, there is value to it because you have thought about this idea, you've internalized it. Of course, it's there, but you don't do much with it practically. Our goal is that your final projects, in every one of those courses where there is a final project, you will use them subsequently. So, for example, as I mentioned earlier, one of our final projects is a lecture, where you literally write out a lecture. Yeah, you have to have citations and it has to be evidence-based. This is a university master's degree. At the same time, you write it as you would speak it. And then you actually deliver that lecture. You're not graded on how you deliver it. It's graded just like an academic paper is. Again, you need the citations, you need the references. But our goal is that after you present it to your fellow journeyers, you will continue presenting it to others. And what we have found, and again, we've used this idea of the Forever Project in our certificate programs, that students who came up with this actually then used it for a lecture they delivered in organizations later, or in schools later, or in their workplace, or to the general public in their community, or to their families, but they continued to use it beyond the course. Same for a workshop that you put together. Same for a coaching protocol that you put together. These are all applied projects. So is there a final project? No, there isn't one for the whole degree, but there are ones, forever projects, for a number of the courses. All right, so let me take another hand. Dawn, I see Maria.
Yeah, she's been waiting. Yeah.
Hi, Tal. Hi, Dawn. Thank you. Thank you for your
Hi, Maria.
time. I was wondering, like, how would a typical week look like? I understand it's 10 hours, but would we get an email with all these readings and information, or we get like live webinars, or we get together with our group? Like, how would you could like simulate one normal week during the masters, and then I understand we have the live on Thursday.
Good.
How would it like play out?
Great question. I think this will be very helpful for everyone to get a sense of what the program actually looks like. So first of all, each week is different, but let me give you a typical week with the things that are there every week and things that are there some of the weeks. So every week, you'll get some at the beginning on Sunday night, you will get an email plus access to the learning management system, which is interestingly called the Matrix, not our invention, that's what it's called. And you enter the Matrix on a Monday morning. And in the Matrix, you have links to readings. Once in a while, the readings are from a book that you will purchase. Most of the readings are online, but you can print out or read from the screen. It's an academic paper. Sometimes it's a short story or a poem. The course on literature. It's an excerpt from a book, whether it's by a psychologist or a philosopher. So you have your readings. Based on each reading, you have a reflection, very short reflection. And again, these reflections are for your eyes only, but we're big believers in, when you write it down, when you're quote unquote forced to reflect on it, you're much more likely to internalize it. So you reflect on that reading. Just about, not every week, but many weeks, you have a writing assignment. Some of these writing assignments are for your eyes only. No one sees it because you're writing about something which is personal. You have to do it. We take your word for it. You tell us that you did it, but we don't read it. It's for your eyes only. And then there are regular papers on some weeks that you submit to your professors, and they read it and they give you feedback on it. So writing is an important part of it. Some writing, by the way, is a journal writing. I mentioned that everything in this program is evidence-based. There is a lot of research on the power of journaling, whether it's for emotional well-being, for physical well-being. So writing things out, expressing rather than suppressing emotions. That's an important part of the program. So journaling is part of it. And again, no one else sees what you write except for you. So writing is an important part. Then there is just about every week an applied element where you are asked to take an idea and apply it in your life. Let me give you just a couple of examples. One is, we talk a lot about kindness and generosity. You're actually asked to commit to a few extra acts of kindness during the week, and you reflect on them, and and you write about them, and you write about what you felt and what you did and the reaction to it. So act of kindness, a gratitude journal. That's part of the program. Physical exercise, experimenting with your nutrition. Why? Because again, the program is very much based on research. No less so, it's based on me-search. Looking inside, experimenting, trying things out. Because in order to find what contributes to your happiness, Maria, yeah, of course you need to look at research on happiness. And research is the universal or the cultural. But you also need to look at what's particularly relevant to you, because you're different from someone who was raised in the same culture. In so many ways, you're different. For the cultural and the universal, we need research. For the personal, we need me-search. So you engage in me-search. Then we have group meetings, not every week, where you meet with 4 or 5 others from your cohort, and you commit to your goals. For example, we have the 30-day challenges throughout the program. Why? Because if you commit to someone else, you are much more likely to actually follow through. And again, if our program is about real, actual change, we must do everything that we can to increase the likelihood that we will change. And one of the things that significantly increases, and when I say significantly, not by 10 or 20%, by 200%, increases the likelihood that you will actually persist when there is a public commitment. So you have your cheerleaders, 4 other fellow journeyers who will be with you and help you as you commit to a goal. And what goal? That's up to you, whatever. You want to do something in your personal life, you want to do something in your professional life, you want to do something small, you want to do something major. It doesn't matter. But you have these meetings for the commitment. You have these meetings also where you listen to each other's presentations and give each other's feedback, and more importantly, feed forward. So that's part of some weeks. Again, every week you have that live webinar, which we strongly encourage you to attend. We do work as a group. We have, I'm using the word fascinating discussions. That's an understatement. I can't tell you, and again, I'm speaking here for personal experience, and I know because many of the students have shared with me, they experience the same thing. I come out of each session on Thursday elevated, because the conversation, last week we talked about the concept of Ubuntu, which is I am because you are. which is an African concept, philosophy, talking about relationships and our interconnectedness. And we talked about it through the philosopher Terry Wright and the activist Terry Wright trend. The week before, we talked about Emerson. The week, before that, we talked about, or a few weeks earlier, we talked about Helen Keller. Every week, these discussions really, elevate us intellectually.
How long is the Thursday meeting? Sorry.
Emotionally.
How long?
It's
how
a
long is the
90 minutes.
90 minutes.
90
Okay.
minutes.
And is it more as a webinar or is it more like a classroom interaction? Or is it like we listen and we also participate in the classroom more?
Interaction. You listen to me enough, believe me, you listen to me, you have, so this is another part on just about every week you watch a pre-recorded lecture. Most of the lectures are my lectures. Sometimes you watch others' lectures, and it's about different topics. The webinars are discussion. I lead the discussions, but they're a discussion.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, you have two more questions. We've got two more with hands up.
Yes.
Trying to answer all the ones on the side.
Yes. Michal.
Oh dear. I have something in my mouth. I'm so embarrassed.
That's okay. It's human. We all have something sometimes.
I didn't think I'd get called on, so I figured, okay, I'm gonna go munch and watch. Sorry about that. So what is the so I guess I know it's kind of a macro question and there's components to it. So as you know, you were at Harvard, hello. Part of the value of a degree is what you learn from it, and part of it is this sense that not everyone can get this degree, that it's hard to get in, it's hard to get out, not everyone passes, not everyone's accepted. Is there any sort of selectivity or filtering if people are not turning things in, or someone applies and maybe they have zero academic training, maybe they didn't even graduate from high school, because it's a master's, and so that has a meaning.
Correct.
I'm just wondering what you do, because selectivity, even though I hate it, is part of the value of the degree, even though it should be about what you learn.
Yeah, so look, Michal, our goal is that as many people as we can are exposed to this program. That's hands down our goal. At the same time, it is a master's program. It is fully accredited. There are standards. So the first standard, which is the obvious one, you need a BA degree from an accredited university.
Okay.
It can't be a paper mill university. So your degree has to be from an accredited university. Once you have that, there is a minimum GPA that you need to get in. But again, it's not high. So most people who have a fully accredited BA will get into this program if they apply. By the way, any BA, because this is happiness studies, this is not just psychology. You are introduced to a lot of psychology, but any BA is welcomed, and you have to do the work.
Right. Okay. That's what I wanted to know.
You have to do the work. So it's not, okay, you apply and 20 months later, you're a minted happiness studies master. No, you have to do the work consistently. Now, as I said, it's sometimes challenging, but when I speak to my colleagues and friends and they look at our retention rates, they're extremely high so not everyone, but almost everyone who started is going to graduate. And the reason is because our students are deeply committed. Again, this is not something theoretical. This is very personal for most people. And as a result of it being very personal, to quote Rogers again, it's also very personal and very general. So yes, you have a BA from an accredited university, you're likely to get in. You'll need to put in the work. If you put in the work, you'll also graduate.
Perfect. That's what I was hoping to hear. Thank you.
Thank you, Michal. Thank you.
Joshua.
Sorry, Dawn, did you?
Yep, no, I was gonna say Joshua's next.
Great.
Hi, Don. Hi, Tal.
Hi, Josh. I finally get to meet you. Josh just recently applied.
Great.
So I'm applied. I'm very interested in your program, Tal. I'm curious what this leads on to. I'm very interested in studying like the convergence of economics and public policy with happiness, and seeing how you can better maximize government's ability to incentivize people to obtain happiness. So what kind of extension happens after this master's program?
Sorry, the last sentence, what
further education opportunities are there in this pursuit after this master's program?
Good question. So first of all, Josh, I'm very glad you're interested in the things you're interested in, and let me just highlight something that's relevant. So if you study economics, you study microeconomics and macroeconomics. Microeconomics, whether it's business, individual, macro, you're talking about government and society. It's the same with happiness. We talk about micro happiness and macro happiness throughout the program. Micro happiness would be personal happiness, would be relationships, would be small groups, families, for instance, or a team in an organization that would fall under micro happiness. And we talk about research that applies to the individual, to the relationship, to the team. And then we also talk about macro happiness. We talk about happiness as it applies to organization as a whole. We talk about happiness as it applies to a community. We talk about national, societal level happiness. And we travel between the two, from micro to macro. They're, of course, interrelated, but we do talk about both. And we also talk about it through the lens of economics. That's also a very important part of happiness studies, whether it's through the work of Kahneman or Layard or Foyle, Diane Foyle, who talks about these ideas. Okay, now what happens beyond? First of all, we are right now through, again, Centenary University, we are working on creating a Ph.D. in happiness studies. And we know that many of our students are interested in getting their PhD. So that could be a next step. You could also go for a PhD in other topics with a foundation in happiness studies, because as I mentioned, that contributes to any field. So if you decide, oh, I want a PhD in economics, having a foundation in happiness studies can elevate your understanding of economics to a whole different level. Many of our students will be interested in a PhD in psychology after. Or they may say, okay, I have a master's degree in happiness studies, and that's where, and I want to teach with that. And they go and teach, whether it's at a university or whether it's in a school or whether it's to the general public in conferences and workshops. But just as happiness studies is relevant for just about every profession, because it augments, it builds on what you do as a teacher or manager or therapist or coach. The same for any discipline, whether you are in economics or in medicine, or we have lawyers and educators. Joshua, does that answer your question, or do you want to focus me?
Mostly. I'm just a little curious if anyone in this current cohort that is in there is already applying for a doctorate program, and how that process goes in a different field. Yes.
So, in different fields. Yes.
Well, because you said the PhD isn't up for a happiness.
Right. Yes. So we have a couple who are applying for a PhD in psychology, and more than a couple are interested in continuing with us to get a PhD. And again, the PhD, they can't apply yet because we haven't got the accreditation yet, but we are going through that process literally as we speak. Our hope and strong belief is that it will be launched in August of 2024, But if not in August of 2024, then, you know, certainly a year after that.
All right. Thank you very much, Tal.
Thank you, Joshua. Arvashni.
How much time do we
Hi,
have? Tom?
Tal.
Hi.
Hi, thank you so much. This is really, really interesting. Tal, I'd like to maybe just pick your brain a little bit on the first cohort that you have going through now.
Yes.
What have you learned? What has really stood out to you, and what have you unlearned during this process?
Thank you for asking this. So, you know, when we started this this program, and Dawn, you remember when I said it in our introductory meeting, I said to them, there's an advantage and a disadvantage to being first. The advantage of being first, or, you know, among the first, is, you know, the freshness of it. It's new. You know, you can say, you know, I was in the first cohort and in the third cohort or second cohort. You know, I was there when it just started. The disadvantage is that I promise you that I'm going to make mistakes. And, you know, just related to the question that I was asked earlier, you know, who are the professors, or am I teaching? The reason why I'm teaching every course, again, in conjunction with, is because I want to be there when and be witness to the mistakes so that I can improve the next time. The biggest thing, and again, Dawn, how many hours did we spend talking about this? The biggest change that we brought about based on a mistake that I made was that we didn't take into consideration that we do have many part-time students. You see, I was in 2 master's degrees in my life. Both of them, I was a student. Yeah, I had a side job, but not really. And that was my full-time engagement, and I applied a similar standard to our master's program. So I gave way too much work. It was just not realistic. They had 2 courses. They have not had, because they're still going through it. They have 2 courses a semester. And what we did for this next cohort and going forward, you'll only have 1 course. It will be shorter, but it will be 8 weeks, but you will have 1 course, and then you'll have another course right after. Because what we found is that what I find every week, you know, 90 minutes of live webinar, I have to talk about 2 courses. It's not enough. And every week, you know, again, I feel elevated, but I feel like we need another 90 minutes to talk about it, at least 90 more minutes. So what we're doing, we're having 1 course at a time, rather than 2 at the time. Same material, but we spread it a bit longer. The previous cohort was 18 months. This is 20 months, because we want less pressure, because most of our students are also working at the same time. Yeah. And yes, we want it to be meaningful. We wanted it also to be more enjoyable than it is now. So this is our biggest learning. In addition, you know, I've taken out some of the readings that I just yesterday. So one of the ideas this week, we're going to talk about improv theater, and how improv theater is important, not just for happiness, it's also important for being a teacher. And so yesterday I took out one of the readings and changed it with another that the next cohort is going to do. So, you know, these are the kind of change, but the biggest change, 1 course at a time, a little bit longer, so there's less pressure each week.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for asking.
Would you just answer this really quick question, because I know it's getting late? Would you consider weekly evenings live interaction classes for those working daytime hours? And I kind of explained already that they are recorded, but I know they all want to see you in person. Yeah. That's the problem. So I'll let you answer.
So first of all, to see me in person, please come to the retreats. You know, I talk about how the weekly webinars are elevating. We come out of those retreats on a high. And yes, that kind of high doesn't last. There is the hedonic treadmill, and that's fine, but they are incredible, those retreats. We look forward to them, we enjoy them, and we look back fondly on them. Now, do we add another evening time? If there's enough demand for it, we will, but the reason why it's so challenging is because, we look, where are most of our students from? So, we have many students from Europe. If we have it in the evening, it's the middle of the night for them. And in the morning, what we found is that even people who work, many of them say, we want this, 90 minutes during the day, and most employees were open. Right, and Dawn, I think you found that also with your other programs. Yep. I mean, you have much more experience than I do.
I was talking to a current student last week that's in the program now, and she told me about 75 people show up for your lecture weekly. So that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that many do attend. So
yeah, most attend.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Because we were worried about that with the time zones when we first started. Because
exactly.
how many countries did I enroll in? You told me 7. I enrolled in 7 countries the first go around, right? Was that right?
Oh, more.
It was more than, right? More than 7?
Yeah. Yeah, but we see it, we see it for the certificate program, by the way, which you're welcome to attend those weekly webinars. And as I mentioned, we have over 85 countries. We have them at different times. We have them early morning, we have them afternoon, so that we can, every other week, we fit one time zone, or different time zones rather. So you can attend those as well. And those are different because they're less academic. They're more about people asking personal questions about their work or their personal lives, but they're not about a specific content. Okay, so this week we're going to talk about a play by Shakespeare, or this week we're going to talk about the research by Martin Seligman or Sonia Lubimirsky. They're more open questions, but you can attend those as well. They're open to all master's students too.
Will you continue to do these lectures at 11 a.m. with the new cohort on Thursdays, or will it be different?
No, the new cohort is actually likely to be, right now we're thinking at around 9:30 a.m. We're going to change the second cohort to 11:15 and probably have your cohort, if you come in at 9:30 a.m. or 9:45 Eastern Standard Time. So that's New York time.
Right. They're asking that question. So someone said, yeah, that's 3 a.m. in the Middle East.
Yeah.
No, this is that's the tough part.
That's tough. But then again, you can attend the live certificate program webinar, which is at Middle East. No, that's not 3 a.m. Middle East. Middle East, it would be 3 p.m.
Okay, somebody.
It's 9 a.m., which would be 3 or 4 p.m. in the Middle East. Yeah. Okay. I get confused with all these time zones.
I know, me too. That's why I'm asking you.
We can talk about that more. So we have a question from Suad. Am I pronouncing this correctly?
Yes, you pronounce it correctly. I'm sorry, my camera is not on. Thank you. I was just wondering, I already have 2 masters and a couple of graduate diplomas. Do you recommend that I wait until the Ph.D. program is being released, or I just embark in this 3rd master's? I don't feel like you're really doing it as a master's. I'm more excited of it as a Ph.D.
Okay, so actually, these are conversations that we're having right now. So what is going to be our prerequisite for the PhD? And initially we thought, okay, so to get that PhD in happiness studies, you need a master's in happiness studies. And we're probably not going to do that. So another master's is fine. What we will ask you to do, though, is to get the certificate in happiness studies. Because when you go into the PhD, you're going straight into research in happiness studies, and you need the foundation. You'll get enough of a foundation through the certificate program, which is, again, a lot shorter. It's obviously a lot less expensive, but you will need that. And then you'll need another master's degree. And again, you have 2 master's degrees, so obviously that's not an issue. So the short answer is no, you don't need to take this master's degree. If you want a PhD, we will ask you to get the foundation of happiness studies if you want to get a PhD in happiness.
And how long is that, the certificate?
The certificate is a year long. As I mentioned, it's 3 hours of investment a week. But it's not the same kind of challenge. I mean, you don't have to submit papers for it. You don't need to do as much reading, but you go through weekly lectures that are pre-recorded. It's low key, and you become part of the same community, the same live retreats if you want to attend them. It's the same community for the master's and the certificate. What I mentioned earlier, if you're in a master's degree, you can attend the live webinars of the certificate program. If you're in the certificate program, you cannot attend the live webinars of the master's program. That's one of the differences.
Okay. Even though my intention is to be a PhD student at the next year, I can't attend the master's program, master's classes. I mean, just as a listener or something.
No, we don't have that, unfortunately. But if you want to attend in a year, I mean, you can start the certificate program, and then you'll be ready to, and then you'll be able to apply for the PhD. If not, you'll have to wait a year later.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Swat. Thank you. Any other questions, Dawn, that we have? Because we don't have any more hands.
No, a lot of them are asking about the certificate program. Is the content the same as the master's degree?
Good question. So if you go, everything that's covered in the certificate, of course, is also covered in the master's degree. Now, if you do the master's degree, and we have many of our, I don't know if many, but I don't know how many there are, Dawn, students who did the certificate and are now doing the master's. There are quite a few of them, right?
The first go around, we had about 25 people that did the certificate.
20, okay, so about a quarter of the students did the certificate and then they did the master's. So what we do then is that there's certain material that they're exempt from. For example, some of the lectures that are pre-recorded, they've already watched, so they don't need to watch them again. And also in terms of the costs, so we reduce the cost of the certificate from the cost of the master's. So, if the master's, the total is, $17,700 for the 20 months. The certificate is, $3,900. So we take $3,900. If you did the certificate, you will pay for the master's $17,700 minus $3,900.
Right.
So you're not double charged in that respect.
13,800 is what they pay.
Oh,
there you go. If they did the certificate.
If they did the certificate.
Right.
Okay. Very good. Let me just end. First of all, I want to thank you, Dawn, for all that
you're
so
doing. Welcome.
And
welcome.
I know that you're literally working around the clock, doing this and so much more. Anyone who's interacted with Dawn knows that it's a special experience. You're starting your happiness studies with your first interaction with Dawn. So thank you for that. Thank you, Centenary University, for making the dream for so many of us come true. And thank you for attending. And I hope that you will join my wonderful colleagues at the Happiness Studies Academy at Centenary on this amazing, special, meaningful potentially life-changing journey. Thank you very much.
Tal is the master teacher of happiness.
I think he's so brilliant and wise and kind and humble. Everything that Tal teaches is based in science, and it's very interdisciplinary. And I love the fact that we draw on economics and science and psychology and literature and art and just everything as the holistic approach, and everything is interconnected.
You gave me this evidence-based, science-based tool, and I'm always grateful to you. Wherever you go, I'm going to follow you. That's it. You're not ever going to get rid of me.
Hello everyone and welcome. California, Mexico, Turkey, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Holland, Argentina, New Zealand, Ukraine. Wow, that's amazing.
HSA is not a certificate program. HSA is a community.
I signed up for the material, and the teacher, obviously world renowned and wonderful. What I didn't realize is that I was going to get a community that is so wonderful. There are people from all parts of the world, and it just makes for such a rich conversation. And of course, events like this where we get to meet in person just really solidifies that the community is made up of like-minded individuals, professionals within their own fields that are leaders and want to take this material that we're learning and spread it with the rest of the world. And the friendships made are what makes us all happier in the end.
When you find a community of people who want to live purposeful lives, then it just amplifies the experience that we're all here to share together.